Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Single best idea on a really, really interesting Monday. Really just can't say enough about it. The team started putting the guest list together Friday, blew it up in the vicinity of Sunday with all we saw in China, all we saw in Russia. But just as importantly, what we saw in the markets. I really can't emphasize enough how nuanced, not odd and not scary, but just how nuanced the markets are. And we had just a terrific balance today in economics, in equities, in bonds, in foreign exchange, looking at particularly euro-yen. And, of course, the international relations of the moment. Major shout-out, Alex Brideau at Eurasia Group on very short notice, his wisdom on actually how does the Kremlin run. And I'd also just Henrietta Trey's was beyond brilliant with Veda Partners about split ticketing, where our parents all voted Republican or they all voted Democrat. And is there going to be split ticketing within the Democratic Party? And she was just brilliant on that. Brilliant as well in economics and framing out the choice set that our central bank has was John Ryding. He has experience at the Bank of England, at the Federal Reserve, truly iconic at Bear Stearns years ago, now with Breen Capital. And it was just a spirited conversation with John Ryding. Let's listen.
The problem with if the Fed moved to hike rates, it would be a tweak, but markets aren't very good at detecting tweaks as opposed to new trends because the Fed has been not very good at explaining the latest monetary policy moves. And so that was the problem back in December when Powell said it was natural for us to talk about rate cuts, and the market, which had 3 rate cuts priced in at that December meeting, which was aligned with the Fed's SEP projections, suddenly priced in 6 to 7 rate cuts, and you got a massive rally and a massive easing of financial conditions. So on the other side, if the Fed were to hike, it's like, why hike just once? It's got to be the start of something.
John Ryding there on the Fed speak. I've really tried to downplay it. I don't have a big view of the parlor game of it. I get it's about making money in futures and all that. But I think John Ryding there on the constraints that the Fed has. He also mentioned that he much prefers a transparency, the dialogue of the Bank of England right now under Governor Bailey than what we see with the endless Fed speaking in America. We did look at equities. Thank you, Lori Calvasina. Cameron Dawson starting as strong with New Edge. Both, very optimistic. There's a bid to the market. But I think the richest conversation today was on bonds. And I'm going to explain this right now. I think it's really important. And that a spread, which the media talks about a spread. It's not orange marmalade or Nutella. A spread is the comparison of yield of whatever bond, a corporate bond, to the full faith and credit sovereign U.S. government bond. And so as the yield comes down of the corporate piece closer to the full faith and credit sovereign piece, that's the phrase spreads narrowing. We have spreads narrowing truly in an historic manner now. Greg Peters at PGIM was really quite good on this last week, that we are upper decile, 10 percentile of the history of spreads narrowing. They narrow in China. They narrow across all the Pacific Rim, the Damien Sassower world. And they narrow in the full faith and credit Western world as well. Amanda Lynam of BlackRock on spreads.
I think at an aggregate level, we think that spreads can remain pretty range bound. The exception, though, Tom, is that we are not expecting triple Cs to catch a bid. So far, they've lagged the overall rally in spreads. If you just zoom in on U.S. high yield spreads are below 300 basis points. That would argue for triple C spreads somewhere in the 600s. They're in the 720s range now. So it just goes to show you that the market is efficient. The market is telling you that not all corporates can navigate this high cost of capital. We don't expect a material spread widening, but I think for further tightening, you need to see participation from that triple C cohort, and we just don't really see that in the near term.
Amanda Lynam at BlackRock, she was just brilliant there on really the dominant theme of the moment, which is what fixed income is doing, and the signals it can give over to the equity market. Final shout out, Chris Verone of Strategas with us today. Look for the whole replay of the show. Not a single best idea, 6 minutes. 2 hours, 56 minutes the complete replay. It comes out 11-ish, 12-ish. They got to read the Yankees box scores, before they get to it. But we get that out midday. You can see a complete replay of what we do from 7 to 10 a.m. Wall Street time. We're on Apple CarPlay, we're on Android, and on YouTube. Here's what you need to do. Subscribe to Bloomberg Podcasts out on YouTube and search Bloomberg Podcasts to get to what we're doing every day. On a Monday before a very eventful Wednesday, single best idea.